Hey guys, Dragon Ball Project Multi has released a post on their social media account, and it looks like they're releasing sort of what looks to be a, I guess we can call it a producer letter. That's sort of a term we use in the Dokkan community. Dokkan, their team releases, I think it's monthly producer letters typically. And what it is it's just a way to provide feedback to the players, give them updates on what's going to happen, and stuff like that. It's a way of communicating directly with the community. Obviously, Dragon Ball Project Multi is not even out yet. We had their beta. I think the beta, what was it? It ended about 2 months ago. So we've had now about a 2-month period where we've had to reflect back on the beta and sort of think about how the game was. But it looks like they're going to be giving us information on the direction the game is going to move in. We don't yet have a release date. I actually haven't even looked at this yet. So this is going to be the first time I'm going to be looking at this live during the recording of this video here. So let's go ahead and start looking at what they're saying. So the Dragon Ball Project Multi official social media account to participants of the regional beta test. So again, that was about 2 months ago it ended. Based on the results of the beta test and your feedback, we would like to explain our design philosophies as well as the direction Project Multi will be taking towards its release. So here we have the full post. Let's go through this. Regional beta testing and beyond. Let us start off by saying to all of those who've participated in the beta test, thank you. With all of the in-game and out-of-game feedback we've received, there's loads to work on. In this letter, we would like to explain a few of our design philosophies as well as the direction Project Multi will be going towards its release. But before going into the details, let us preface this by saying this letter will be pretty long. Okay, yeah, I mean, it's fairly long. I mean, you know, sure. All right, let's get into it. Original intent. I'm also farming Dokkan while I'm reading this. Project Multi was designed to provide the experience of freely controlling your beloved Dragon Ball characters wherever, with whomever, and whenever through the franchise's first team-focused multiplayer game. Specifically, we aim to create a game where a fun competition could be had between most of any player, even with a bit of a gap between their skills. This is kind of interesting. So it says, even with a bit of gap between their skills. So this is obviously intentional that it is not a completely skill-based game. I highly doubt this is a game that, you know, is intended to be along the lines of something like League of Legends or Dota 2, where, you know, 99 times out of 100, the better skilled person is going to win. This is probably, you know, one aspect of their design philosophy is probably going to be that even if a player is significantly worse than another player, they at least have the chance of winning over that better player, which obviously is not completely a skill-based environment. So that sounds to me like what this means here. Deep understanding of the game in practice will serve you well, but swaying game elements will ensure that each round will play out differently from the last. Okay, yeah, this... sure. So, like, essentially what this is saying is there's going to be RNG elements that also play a major role in the outcomes of each fight. All of that in roughly 10 minutes for a satisfying experience without overstaying our welcome. The regional beta's purpose was to ensure the above values could be properly felt, as well as other fidelities, including but not limited to network stress and in-game balancing. With that in mind, our conclusions for the 2-week test are as follows. Positives. High interest in future hero characters. I mean, yeah, that's... You didn't really need to run a test in order to conclude that. General rules are not too confusing and easy to get into. I would agree with this. I think, now again, there's 2 modes. I mean, if you guys played during the beta test, there was the land grab mode and there was the standard rule mode. I think most people probably enjoyed and played more in the standard rule mode. I think the land grab mode was only introduced during the 2nd week of the beta. But I think for the most part, yeah, I would agree with this. The rules of the standard rule mode were pretty straightforward and pretty easy to understand. Ease of control, for the most part, I would agree as well. There were a few bugs. I remember specifically with putting your helpers down, there was definitely some sort of like targeting bug where it would essentially capture you in the animation of like placing the helper, and your mouse would be stuck on like the screen where it would be like showing you how to place the helper down. So that was definitely a thing, but it was more of a bug as opposed to like a control issue. Network latency was not detrimental to overall experience. Yeah, I mean, I was even playing with people. I live in Japan, and I was queuing up with people who were playing the game in the US, and I you know, obviously there was a bit of lag. You could, I mean, it's unavoidable at that point when you're playing somebody who's living 8,000 miles away or whatever. But for the most part, I didn't really think there were any major network issues there in terms of connection or anything like that. Isometric views did not diminish the value of the world of Dragon Ball. Yeah, I felt that the overall theme and the elements of the Dragon Ball series were fairly representative in this game. General aesthetics are in tune with fan expectations. Yeah, I mean, animations, costumes, things like that, I think were all pretty good. Demand for cosmetic items exceeded expectation. So I am actually somebody that probably cares less about cosmetic stuff than most people. In terms of like costumes and skins and voices and effects and stuff like that, I'm kind of indifferent. I'm more of a person who just enjoys the basics. So if, like, you know, Goku has a different options that you could have for costumes and voice lines and whatever, I'm not really that particular about those kinds of things, but I obviously understand that people do tend to like their customization in terms of aesthetics, so that makes sense. Negatives. Certain game systems felt unrewarding. I'm not really too sure what they're specifically referring to with unrewarding. Maybe they were talking about like capturing the Android 16 was one of the objectives. I don't know. I'm not particularly sure what they mean by that. I know that there were certain game systems that felt over rewarding. I think one of the major points of criticism that people had about the standard rule was the Great Ape felt way too overpowered, which obviously is the opposite of unrewarding. It was over rewarding. Specific character roles, tanks outperformed others to an extreme degree. Yeah, I mean, the main one is like Vegeta was insane, Zamasu was insane. I didn't really see too many people talking about Cooler. Cooler was classified as a tank role in this game, but I definitely saw and experienced much more overwhelming players who were playing with Vegeta and Zamasu as the tank characters. They definitely felt like the strongest. Slightly confusing UI. Slightly confusing UI. I mean, I wish they would tell us in what regard. I don't know what areas are they talking about it being confusing. The one thing I wish they would do with the UI, at least in the actual, like, in the match itself, is I wish they would allow you to be able to hover over your abilities and see what the description of the abilities are. I know you can take so like before you even queue into a match, you can go into like the character screen, and in that screen you'd be able to look and inspect what the different effects are of the character. So what does a character's first ability do? And it gives you an explanation. It also actually even shows you what the ability looks like visually. There's a little like demo screen that pops up and shows you that. But in the match itself, obviously when you level up, you have the ability to choose which skills you want to rank up and level up. It's you know, for a newer player, I think it's pretty difficult to just know off the bat what you want to do. Sometimes you would want to, like, you know, hover over one of your abilities just to confirm what it does, but you can't actually do that. You can't hover over abilities in the game, and there's no like pop-up that shows up and tells you what they do. So I think they should definitely implement that. That's sort of the one point of criticism I have for UI purposes. Friends/party system bug. I mean, yeah, but sure, that was a bug. I mean, it was a pretty bad bug. I will be honest with this. I think it was the first day or two of the beta being live where like just the party system just straight up didn't work at all. Like, that was the bug. To me, it kind of seems like just, I don't even know how you launch a beta without the friend/party system even not working at all. Like, it seems a little weird to me, but I don't really know if I would consider that to be a negative of the game. It was just a bug they fixed. Lacking mobile tailored interface. So I actually didn't even try and play this game on mobile. I don't know what that would look like. I didn't try it, so I don't really have much input there. Crashes in high temperature hardware on mobile. I could definitely see that. I mean, this was a relatively, I mean, not for PC, right? If you're playing this game on PC, I wouldn't really call this a relatively demanding game in terms of the graphical demand that it would take to run this. But on mobile, I could definitely see that being the case. Too many bots. Yeah, this is probably the biggest issue that I had with it as well. I think out of all of these things, and the last one is not enough difference between rounds to warrant long-term replayability. I think this is more so in line with a lot of the mechanics I was talking about earlier with like the Great Ape being too rewarding. That, I think, feeds into this, right? So basically what happened is the team that won the Great Ape, I don't even know, like 99% of the time would just win the entire game. So that, I think, would play a lot into the, not as much replayability factor. But out of all these negatives, this one to me was the biggest problem. But this, I think, is probably easily amendable. there being too many bots. I mean, they just changed the formula of matchmaking, and then it should be fine. So, I mean, you know, I think having easy to fix negatives is a good sign for the game, because it means the core elements of the game, I think, are good enough. Our intention is to further strengthen the positives and solve the negatives to provide the experience we've originally envisioned. At the same time, we hope to keep expectations on what's to come at launch at a realistic level so as to not cause any disappointments. I doubt they're going to announce a release date yet. I don't know. I have no clue. I'm just going to put a random date out there. I'll just say June of 2025 is when this game will release. But I imagine there's probably going to be at least a few more beta tests before then. But I think we've got quite a while before this game comes out. Major changes. Before moving on, please note that not all of our changes and fixes are set in stone yet. Discussions and planning are still being made, and details of our plans will be expanded on in the coming months through our official channels. With that, here are some of our major changes and directions on the future of Project Multi. Hey, look, what's that number one? It's Great Ape. So we got Great Ape, matchmaking, hero characters, and game rules. This one definitely seems like the most impactful, changing the fundamental rules of the game. Okay. Number one is a Great Ape. Its original objective was to up the ante to accelerate the game and provide a chance for either team to win. Both objectives were accomplished, but the latter came at a detriment for the majority of the players. As was our original design philosophy, the Great Ape will still maintain its function to encourage a climactic end of the round, but the boon it provided to its defeaters will be removed entirely. Not exactly sure what that means in specific regard to the actual mechanics it provides. Like, when you defeat the Great Ape, what does it do? It doesn't really explain much. But at least it's good to know that they're changing this, and they recognize that this is something that very desperately needs to be adjusted. Number two is matchmaking. In order to pleasantly continue playing multiplayer games, it is essential to shorten the matchmaking and loading time as much as possible. Let us admit that we overdid the tuning for this during the beta test, forcing the game client to instantly give up when looking for other players to match. This is simply our mistake, and although bots will not disappear entirely, matchmaking in general will be made better by launch. Okay. I mean, there's nothing really that needs to be said about that. I think this is a good change. Number three is hero characters. Okay, this is the longest one. To provide a chance for every one of our hero characters to shine, we will be making frequent balance changes, whether they directly or indirectly change how a specific hero behaves. Interesting. I mean, that's obviously going to be harder to maintain the more characters they introduce. I'm not exactly sure what the launch roster is going to look like. It's definitely not going to look like what we had in the beta, right? Where there were only 10 or so characters. It's definitely going to be more than that on launch. But as we get more characters into the game, it's going to be hard to constantly be updating for all those characters, especially with an ever-expanding roster, right? One key point we hope players will understand with this is that not every character will perform perfectly in the same meta environment. Yeah, I mean, that's just obvious. There's always going to be better and worse characters, right? There will always be certain heroes outperforming another in different scenarios, and we feel that's what will make this game fun and engaging. Yeah, I'm in agreement with that philosophy. Our aim is to shift the spotlights from time to time onto different heroes to incentivize a variety in gameplay. Sure. That is not to say our beta test environment was perfect. On the note of hero characters, the shop level and hero coins are planned to be removed. Okay, that's good. I think a lot of the negativity surrounding the actual, I guess the way you obtain characters, there was a lot of negativity surrounding the shop level and hero coin mechanics. So I'm very glad to see that those are being removed. They're just straight up removing them. That's okay. Interesting. Instead, hero acquisition will be consolidated into the collection level rewards with a curated order of heroes available. As heroes are added, additional level rewards will be implemented for players to acquire them from. For those of you who may be worried that heroes in the farther ladders of collection level rewards may provide unfair advantages, we assure you that every hero will have its strengths and weaknesses. Okay. So you have to progress in the in-game collection level system in order to obtain heroes, it sounds like. Interesting. Game rules. Although the specifics are still on the drawing board, we have plans to implement a system of randomness to sway the outcome of a match to provide a certain degree of unpredictability. Yeah, I think that. I mean, this fits right into what we were talking about in the beginning of the newsletter here, up here, where it says one of their objectives or original intents of the game was to have a way for players who have lower skill levels to end up winning, which I think is fine. I mean, this is not supposed to be chess where the better player is always going to win. We do not wish for players to constantly be forced to perform optimally in the same fashion over and over again, nor do we want for players to feel their accomplishments in team fights to feel insignificant to the outcome of the round. We understand that the Great Ape was not optimal in that matter, yeah. Regardless, additional rules and tweaks are being worked on, and they will be disclosed in the coming months. Sure, that sounds good. Conclusion. Our priority remains to provide long-term fun for all of the fans of Dragon Ball through Project Multi. Although many of the designs listed above may change at launch, and we will put our efforts to maintain transparency so that our players will understand our intent behind gameplay changes. Furthermore, any feedback will be greatly appreciated to make for a better overall experience. We look forward to seeing you all on the battlefield again. Okay, I mean, overall, I feel like this is a very positive engagement with the community. Again, this is something that other games that I cover, mainly Dokkan and Legends, they tend to have these occasional interactions where they'll say, we understand that, you know, this is something that's happening, and here's something we want to change, or, you know, here are some upcoming events or characters that are going to release, and here's what we're planning to do for this month, and here's an event that's coming out. So just to be constantly, I think, engaged with the community, especially for a game that isn't even out yet. All they've had is just one beta test, and they're already moving in the direction of being open and transparent with the community, I think is a very good sign for the future of this game. So I'm pretty optimistic, I think, about the way that Dragon Ball Project Multi is moving forward. Obviously, the beta test, this was the purpose of the beta test, was for us to provide feedback on certain mechanics and systems in the game that we felt were good and which ones we felt were bad. So glad to see they're taking action on that, and hopefully they continue to improve the game in the future, and I'll be interested in seeing the next time they're going to hold a beta test. Again, the last beta test was about 2 months ago. I'm thinking maybe we could have another beta test in December at some point. And then maybe we could have another one early in 2025 too. But again, I think the actual official launch of the game is probably a bit away. I wouldn't really expect it to come out anytime soon. But let me know what you guys think about this Dragon Ball Project Multi sort of like newsletter we have here. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.